Welcome everyone. This is my first time presenting at BizTimes. I'm really happy that we have a full room. Also very happy we have Tony Gaskin here as well as Andy Martin, two of the panelists. I'll let them introduce themselves, but a brief introduction about myself. I've been around in manufacturing for over 30 years working at ISE and Pickles. So we were actually kind of joking a little bit about longevity here. I've got 32 years with them. Tony and Andy will let them tell you how many years they have. What's that?
Mike, so I'm going to hear you in the back.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. Sorry, guys.
I do not have a microphone.
I know you don't.
I don't think this is on either.
This is a switch. Turn it on. Switch. Okay. Yeah.
Check one, check. I'll just speak louder. Okay. So yeah, I've been around Paperless or with Paperless for 32 years. Our sole goal in life is to actually work with manufacturing companies like yourselves, specifically discrete manufacturers, and very specific, we are only dealing with the manufacturing execution systems, which is really helping you run your shop floor, giving visibility and velocity for not only information that goes out to the floor, but also communicating to the people what they should be working on, how they should be working on things, and then communicating that back to the rest of your business so that you guys can make intelligent business decisions based on real-time information. So that's our kind of goal in life. I'll let Tony introduce himself.
Sure, Tony Gaskin. I'm the General Manager of Operations for GE Healthcare. We got a factory just a little ways away from here, actually, over by Miller Park, Electric Avenue. We make X-ray tubes and detectors that go in CT systems. It's pretty high-tech kind of manufacturing that we do. I've been with GE Healthcare for about 25 years now. I think you can see probably the range of time picture that Rick chose. But I've been in several different roles there. One of my favorite roles was a few years ago, the lean manufacturing GM for the global GE Healthcare business, where we had about 80 factories. And been back just mainly in Wisconsin here, running this factory for the last about 4 years, but really using lean concepts, that kind of thing.
Yeah, my name is Andy Martin. I'm a Vice President of Operations for Generac. So I've been there 25 years. So our business, we've got really 3 segments. Residential, which is high volume, make to stock. So think of your home standby and portable generators. Then we have what we call a chore business, so outdoor equipment, lawnmowers, things like that. And then we have a industrial business, so it's all configuration, build to order type product. So your big industrial, all the way up to 2 megawatt generators. Most of our sites are here in Wisconsin, spread throughout. So Whitewater, Eagle, Jefferson, Oshkosh, and Berlin. And then we do have a plant in Trenton. And then we do have global plants in Mexico and Europe as well.
Thank you guys. Like Linda said, our purpose for this session is really to say, all right, how can we do more with less, or to switch it around, as I was talking to Tony a couple days ago, how can we do more with the same, right? We're all trying to, improve our businesses. Obviously, continuous improvement is a big thing out there, but we're also kind of feeling constrained, right, with resources, whether that's material, machine, or manpower. Right? Our resources are always kind of that constraint. If we can get more out of what we have today, still satisfying our customers, still satisfying the production schedules that we have, that's what our goal is today, is kind of pick these guys' brains a little bit to say what have they done in their businesses to obviously try to increase their productivities and their efficiencies. So like I said, it's split into 3 kind of categories to start out with. First is material, then we go into machines, and then we go into manpower. These are 3 key resources that every manufacturer has to deal with, right? So with material, right, we've all lived through the last 3 years of our life here, right, about the constraints and the supply chain. We broke that down into two segments, right? One, we've got external, and then we've got internal. So I'll ask Tony and Andy here, first off, how did you deal with, in the last couple of years, and has it changed a lot today, for those material constraints that we've all felt the last 3 years?
Yeah, so I can lead and talk about some of it, and there's material constraints over the last 2 or 3 years have been extremely challenging, and when you can't get material from a supplier, it's just real work to track that in and manage your manufacturing. That's actually gotten quite a bit better over these last few months, and I feel like we're back to normal in that sense. The thing I think of with material internally is, and especially in terms of doing more with less or doing more with the same kind of folks, is how we move material, how we deliver material out to the lines in our manufacturing operation. We used to do it really, individual operators would go to a warehouse and get the parts that they need. This is quite a few years ago, for how many things they were going to make today. And we've gotten to where we've created supermarkets of parts, we create kits to make one thing, and we deliver those to the operators, so the operators stay on the line and keep working while we deliver material. And that kind of lean flow of material is really huge, and we get a lot of productivity out of that. It's also one of those areas where we get really good engagement from operators, because a lot of times people in the shops are afraid of that lean concept, because they're, hey, lean, you're just trying to get rid of my job, or whatever the thoughts are out there. They don't like, you're just trying to make me work faster. It's kind of the opposite of that in many ways. But putting a system in place that delivers the material that somebody needs, and it's clear that you have everything you need, that always is the 2 thumbs up from that team. They embrace that and like it, and it's a good entry point, I guess, for some of those concepts. So that's the stuff I think about with material flow internally.
Yeah, so I think for us, I'll break that down into a few elements. So first, for the external supply chain, I think COVID was the start, but we see that dynamic continuing. Not as bad as COVID, but you got things like wars going on in Russia and stuff with China. Who knows where that ends up in the future. So our suppliers are globally, we got them everywhere. We had to react quickly to Russia. We actually had not many, but a couple of suppliers there. So obviously with that whole situation, we've had to change gears and find other suppliers. So that's always the constant concern for us is, I think over the years we've actually done a better job of dual sourcing, so multiple sources. The pain there is how do you control where it's coming from and the quality side and knowing what's in what product. So that's been a new challenge when you dual source we're working through. But definitely it's forced us to how do you dual source and then have that ability to react as things come. So we've developed a pretty strong global sourcing group that can help us react pretty quickly to resource suppliers when we need to, things like that. So I think that's one. I think for the internal side, we have a lot of the same issues that Tony talked about. I think it's interesting. I would suggest you got to look at that and what's right for your business or your plant. So our high volume plants, we've gone the direction Tony's plants did. It's how do you get those parts line side so the operators just stay on the line and they build, right? So those plants are organized by part number, identified to the station. But I think we lose some flexibility, right? So if we want to build a different product on that line, it requires a whole changeover, right? You got to strip those parts away. You got to put new parts there. But once again, high volume, it works. Good productivity, I would say, from the direct workforce. Our configured side, a different approach. We got a couple. So in our lower KW configured plant, a little bit high volume, we actually, that line set up where parts flow by family. So a generator has, a base frame, an engine, an alternator, and we'll call it fabrication, sheet metal parts, right? So rooftop, doors, things like that. So that line is set up where we make our own sheet metal, but like doors flow to a station, corner post to a station. We don't identify anything. We identify the part number, but we don't identify any location by part number. It's just if it's a door, it goes to this location, whatever part number it is, and then we rely on the operators on the line to pick the right part number, put on the right unit based on the work order and the part number. So once again, a little bit different approach, but configured product. So you'd be changing your location setups every day if you try to copy what the high volume plants do. So a little bit different. And then our really high, plants that do, we'll say the 500 kW on up. We actually pick per order right now. We're actually trying to change that to be more like the other plant I just talked about. But for example, we're picking every part for every job just because everything's different. And I think what you see there is the amount of material indirect support that takes versus the people on the line. And then if you do have issues, our process for identifying that is needed improvement. So I think that we've done the last few years with all the challenges, we had a gap where somebody would know about a material gap, but the people on the line wouldn't know. So then we'd be running lines right and run out of parts. So we've started actually a morning, we call it a people process, parts process. So every morning our supervisor, planners, supervisors, lead people sit in a room for, it takes from 30 minutes to an hour sometimes, depending on how many issues you have. But they lay out all the issues from people to parts. And the whole idea there is, what parts do we need purchasing to go expedite and get in because it's critical and we can't run the line without it. Also, what parts are not coming in. So the supervisor can be aware and can he make changes that day to the line to continue running and make sure his people are productive while we're solving the part problem. So that could be, hey, we're going to build ahead, put that part on when it gets here. Hey, I know I can build and test and put that part on in boxing, so not a concern. Or hey, I know that I need to change the schedule and pull something up and push that product out because you can't run through tests. So sorry, long answer to that question, but
That's great.
Yeah, I think we'll come back to that concept a few times here, probably as we go back and forth here today. We use the term, it's our daily management system that we do kind of same thing in at the beginning of the shift, kind of where we cover safety, quality, delivery, and cost, each of those things, and what are the issues in the way, and kind of using that for data capture, as well as the daily, hey, what do I have to do to win today, but kind of capturing the data. That for me is if I was going to pick the one thing that I would focus on, it's kind of that, grabbing data from those kind of operational opportunities to improve.
One thing I'll mention also, if the audience has any questions regarding something that's being talked about, feel free to interject or raise your hand. We want to be as interactive as possible up here. I do have a question, if you can maybe, something you said, Tony, about that distribution and kitting, right? So kitting is a great tool, right? Or a great idea, great methodology. Are you using just kitting, or are you using other inventory methodologies on the floor, like Kanban or...
Yeah. So Kanban, for me, relates a lot to the way we do the kitting process. So Kanban is a signaling system, so we use those kits, and for a given particular job, and ours are repetitive. So we're not super high volume like the X-ray tubes we make. We'll make about 6,000 tubes over the course of a year. But for us, it's a steady volume, and we have specific lines for specific things. So it is repetitive. But whether I need a kit or not, it's an open spot on the floor. So if the parts get pulled, there's a signal to refill that. So that we use sort of that Kanban process to drive the flow within the shop. And it helps a lot because as you fill a kit in the supermarket, if you're out of a part, you know it now. And so that's one of those times you raise the signal and say, hey, we have a problem. Hopefully we already knew about it, but if you don't, you know it before it gets to the line. So somebody doesn't start a job and not have the parts that they need. But it's that signaling system that's a big part of this as well.
Andy, are you guys using Kanban or any other inventory methodologies?
yeah, we use that. We use a plan for every part process as well as like a runner repeater stranger methodology. So your runner parts, can you get them line side and have signals similar to what Tony suggested. And then your strangers, obviously you pick, and then kind of your in the middle parts, you make a decision one way or the other, depending, right? So we try to use that approach, especially in our configured plants where things are different. Obviously in our high volume plants, everything's more of a runner, so not as big of a deal, but especially in our configured plants, yeah, we use that methodology. And then you're using whatever solution best applies to that part. So there again, Kanban or locate your runners line side, and then kit or pick your strangers.
Interesting too, Rick, that you asked, because just within the last year, really, we've from our ordering system with several of our suppliers, we're probably at about 70% of the parts that we order now we have a Kanban signal with our suppliers. So we use the Kanban signaling internally, but we've been using Kanban pretty successfully externally as well. And that helps as our volumes, for whatever reason, slow and pick up, it kind of automatically happens with our suppliers. And we've had some good success there with that signaling.
Yeah, and for those that aren't familiar with Kanban, Kanban can be an internal tool, and it can also be an external tool. So you can have replenishments from your line or your kit back to a picker, and then back to a supermarket, and then back to a vendor or supplier as well.
Yeah, just consumption based. I used it, it puts an order out. I used it, it puts an order out.
And each one of those can be different as well. I mean, I could be sending one piece down the line, but I could be buying 10 or 100 from my supplier, right? So each little replenishment trigger is different.
Yep.
I don't think I'd do manufacturing justice, right? I didn't put scrap up here, right? Because I know we all focus on it, right? It's something that we're always trying to drive down. So again, asking you guys, because material is such a critical resource, and because the supply chain obviously hit us harder, have you guys done anything recently, at least in the last 2 or 3 years or 5 years, whatever you want to say, to actually try to drive down scrap? And that's not only just for raw material and the components you buy from suppliers, but also for the end items that you produce.
Yep. Go first.
Yeah, we've done a few things. So, we obviously track our scrap data. So we run reports and analyze by department, so Generac's a very data-driven company. Right? I like to say we're a bunch of engineers run by a finance guy. So, so data is everywhere, right, for us. So we review that quite a bit, actually. Really working down the common issues. I'd say we spend time on like quarterly inventory adjustments, we call it, which is kind of that bulk where usage can vary. So how do we confirm we got right scrap rates and things like that to drive the bombs correctly or bill material. So I think that's one end. We put a lot of focus recently on our own quality. So we're actually trying to go to a next level quality initiative with our company on how do we reduce our warranty and how do we make sure we have less defects going out the door. So we're tracking our rework costs pretty closely to drive that. But really what we're really tracking is, we call it first pass assembly and first pass tests. So what are the test cell failures in our test cells? So every generator we make gets tested before it leaves. So we track all the failures and why and what can we do to reduce that. And then we also have line people can report issues as they see it through the assembly process, as well as we have quality inspectors. So we document everything they find, and then have the teams go back through our daily management process as well, similar to Tony's, and ask them to root cause and go after the big hitters. So a couple different things we're doing.
Yeah, I would say for our factory very specifically, we're super process sensitive site. We have very expensive materials and challenging materials to use. We have to put things through furnaces that run at 2,000 degrees C for 20 hours, and something can go wrong in there. And then we build those tubes up and we test them through X-ray testing and all that stuff. And throughout that process, we do have fallout rates. And you talked about it. It's kind of, some of that is built into we expect certain yields. If we improve, great, we'll need less parts. If we do worse than that, we'll need more parts. And that's kind of in the flow. We do sometimes see bigger problems where we need to go work with a specific supplier to make sure that we have the quality problem solved, but also that we're getting the parts. And that's actually daily kind of stuff for us. It really is. And it is our number one issue for productivity when I talk about dollar productivity in the shop, and just with what we do. And it's millions of dollars a year, and when we want to drive productivity, we work on that. So we have teams all the time working on those, and they're very technical, engineers, doctorates, working on specific issues all the time to keep driving those out. And if we didn't, we wouldn't even be able to operate it. So it's a big driver for us.
Moving on to machines, excuse me. Back to material. But obviously machines are critical as well. I put up the first two labels here for utilization and availability. And then I have OE on there as well. Does everybody in the room know what OE is? Overall equipment effectiveness, right? It's a metric that came out many years ago, I was talking with Andy about this too, like, remember when RFID came out, right? And we were set up with an R application, my boss said, all right, we gotta have RFID, built into our application, because we're gonna actually track parts being moved and both raw material and finished goods. I was all set for it right away. The cost of it was just ridiculous, so none of our customers went forward with it, right? OEE was a little bit of the same way, where for OEE, it came out, like I said, 10, 12 years ago. We had built into our product to be able to actually show OEE and the 3 different variables of OEE. But again, the data wasn't there to support it. The discipline wasn't there within the facilities to actually capture the data, actually to create a good value. And just so you guys know, that the 3 values are the machine availability, the machine performance, and then the quality, right? Those are your 3. So you could look at an OEE number percentage, that's what it spits out, and say I have 76% utilization or 76% OEE. You need to peel it open a little bit to say, all right, what was my availability? What was my performance? What was my quality? Well, maybe my performance was pegged at 100%, and my quality was also pegged at 100%. Those are 2 great numbers, right? But now my availability was down in the 50s. Well, maybe that's because we had a plant shut down for 2 days, and that's why that number was bad. So you need all 3 of those numbers working together to figure it out. So I did see I saw a couple of nodded heads out there that you guys are aware of it. It is a critical factor, but let's talk about the availability one first. Having your machine available and then having your machine utilized is critical. So I don't know if you guys have specific stories about either one of those and how you can track it and get more availability, more utilization.
Yeah, and OEE is, we talk about it, I don't do a lot with OEE as a specific measure today. Not because we shouldn't or wouldn't want to be able to see that, but we've got some pretty old machines that don't have PLCs on there, and it'd be pretty manual to get some of it. Anything newer than 20 years, honestly, we probably could have it. But what we've found is, for me, when we talk, yield is something we measure very specifically all the time because we're scrap driven. So we know the yield all the time. So if yield is the problem, we see that. If it trips up, we see it. The kind of the argument that comes through is whether it was available or utilized. And if you talk to the operators out on the floor, hey, why didn't we make as many things as we were supposed to make this shift or this week? It was because the equipment wasn't available. And if you talk to the folks that maintain that equipment, it was available, they just didn't use it. So we do measure both of those things in, if equipment's down, and I look at it in terms of did we make our production targets or did we not? So in this daily management system, if we missed something, what was the reason? And we found just dramatically it was utilization, not availability. So how quick for us, we have one person manning 6 furnaces. Do we get the furnaces unloaded and loaded as fast as we could? Those kind of things are much more the drivers for us. And that was interesting to find out. That's what we would find out from an OEE measure, same thing. But we've done that kind of through our daily management system. So I'd say we do each of the elements of it. I just don't have the final number that we look at on a dashboard that way.
Yeah, very common.
Yep.
Yeah, I'd say we're similar. We probably have all the elements of it, but we don't really look at an OEE number. So similar, we look at our labor productivity really closely. We also use an MDI approach, managing daily improvement, similar to GE. So we've got hour-by-hour boards on the line. We track takt time. And really, as the line supervisors run the line that day, we're really saying, hey, each hour, did you meet your goal? If not, why not? And it's really about, if you don't hit the goal, what are you doing to solve it? So you're successful the next hour. And how do you just fix the problem right away? So we've gone to more tools like that, and then rolling that up to what we call a tier 2, where each day you're kind of doing some high-level Paretoing and getting the teams to go work on kind of those issues for that week, with the goal of how do we just solve it right away, be successful, and then we don't have to go backwards and look so much, right? So we've gone to more that approach. We do have some elements. We've got a high-volume rotor stator line in one of our facilities, so it's producing a part every probably under a minute, I think, right now. So we've got some tools there where we actually track, not necessarily OEE, but we track The system will basically shoot out warnings and alarms if we don't hit the tactile. Once again, more than an idea of picture response, go solve the problem, get that equipment up and running. I think the one thing we do track is machine uptime and downtime. So we really track through our maintenance department how much time the machine's been down, and then we'll Pareto that. I think one interesting story there, we had a brake press. It's with an automatic tool changeover in one shop where we kept having all these problems where it kept going down and issues. I'm not sure we ever figured out the root cause of why it kept breaking down, by the way, but I can tell you we put a camera on it, and ever since we put a process camera there to try to understand what was going on, amazing, all the issues went away.
And that's a simple solution too, right?
Yep.
To kind of piggyback on some of the things these guys have, again, GE and Generic, obviously two very large companies, and they're still kind of saying, all right, we don't use this overall OEE calculation. But what they did say is they both said that they look at that availability and that utilization, just making sure that that machine is used. I've got a customer of mine up in Minnesota, great story. This is before they even became a customer of mine. And it was deemed from the operator, the supervisor, and the plant manager that they could not get any more production out of a certain machine. And they were producing 7 million pounds of aluminum out of one machine. They said, oh, it's tapped out, we need to buy a new one, we need to expand the shop, whatever else that they said, right? They took that machine from making 7 million pounds per year to 16 million pounds per year. Just by figuring out availability and utilization. They did kind of what Andy was saying, monitor that machine. Why is it going down? Oh, it's going down for 10 minutes here, 5 minutes there. There were some chips that were stuck in it. Let's open up the doors and clean them out and start it up again. And they realized that this machine was underutilized. I mean, again, that's a great story for more or less.
I have another one just like that. This was actually right, it happened to be right around the beginning of COVID time and had nothing to do with it, but just, from a time frame standpoint. I'd just gotten back over to this plant for one of my global roles, and we were in a situation where one of the key components that we sent through our furnaces, we were kind of tapping out with capacity as well, which was a real problem because for us to get a new furnace, which is one of the things that we've historically done, we just get equipment that we need and buy our way out of a problem. But it was like a 1.5 year or 2 year lead time. The lead times were slipping. I didn't have time to wait for that furnace to get in there, so we did something similar. It wasn't a camera. We actually put somebody out on the line for 24 hours a day for a month with the operators to solve problems with them, because their problem, and there are a myriad of them. I didn't get the material delivered that I needed to be delivered. There is an equipment problem. There's, I didn't get a signal that this furnace was complete, and we kind of went after each and every one of those problems, and we got about a 30% capacity improvement from that, from really going after standard work and signaling of problems that has carried through to this day. We didn't end up needing to buy that $1.5 million furnace it was. So it was a good savings, and fortunately, because even if we'd gotten the furnace in, I think we still, all these underlying problems, you wouldn't have gotten the capacity out of it if you wanted it anyway. So good examples.
And great solutions as well. Obviously, a camera is one, the individual is another one. We've got a customer in Butler here as well that has very 1920-ish machines, and they have a $120 sensor that's just monitoring if that thing is spitting out parts. And if it's not spitting out parts, and we set it to be 8 minutes, it automatically notifies somebody that this machine is down. So you can do some things, really, cheaply, a person,
yeah,
a camera, a sensor that says I can, understand when it goes down and how long it's been down. So again, capturing that availability and utilization is a huge advantage to actually, increasing your productivity. Manpower, another big thing. I think the pandemic and everything else kind of really brought it to light even more, right? Finding people and keeping people. Can't tell you a customer of mine that I go to where I talk to them and they don't say, we can't find people, we can't keep people. I mean, we're just lucky that they show up, right? So, what do you do? And then you kind of take that to the next level of, you have to train a new person, right? right? And then we'll get into empowering and culture a little bit later. But what do you guys do, or what do you see out there, from finding people and resources, and then obviously keeping them, or even training them a little faster than what you've done in the past?
Yeah, so that's obviously been a challenge for everybody the last few years. We do all sorts of things on the recruiting side, I would say. I think more importantly, it's what are we doing on the inside. So we really work on cross-training, not only for development of people, but we talked about that ability to react to changes going through the plant. So people are gone, you're having issues, how can you better flex people through your facility? So we actually had to go back a few years ago, we changed all our job descriptions and our progression through the plant to be more about what you learn. So Generac's been around a long time, and we've grown a lot, but we're a small privately owned company. It was 50 years ago, it was all about this is my workstation and where I work, right? The last few years especially, we've spent time over the years transitioning that, but the last few years especially, we did all of our promotion titles to be all about flexing, right? So to move from, say, the summer 1, 2, 3 to 4, it's about learning. It's about your ability to go work different operations through the plant. Less about your tenure at the company. So I think that's one thing we've done to try and just help people progress, but help the training as well as incentivize it a little bit and make it so people are willing to flex through your plant as well as you have issues, which then creates some of that empowerment. I think the other big thing for us is I was walking through a plant one day, and several employees would tell me about how they told somebody of an issue and nobody did anything, right? So how many of you heard that before? Yeah, everybody. So we finally, we call it our Drive to Zero process, but we're an employee idea program. We actually went out and developed a system where we don't have cards. So if an employee has an issue, we encourage them to tell somebody. We encourage them to fix it, just so let's just solve problems and get things done, right? But then we also tell our team, like, hey, if you've done that and it's not getting addressed, fill out this card, right? So the card is designed where you put down your problem, you put down a solution, and then really what the system is really for is not only solving problems, but how do we create with our leadership that engagement conversation, right? So that card then triggers a conversation with that person's leader or supervisor, where that supervisor has a conversation to talk about the problem, the solution. And look, if we can implement it, then we go implement it, right? And if we can't, then how do we give that feedback to that employee? Either come up with a different idea or just accept that, hey, maybe that problem is just, it's not the biggest thing to go after, or maybe the economics aren't there for that solution right now, so we got to keep thinking about it, right? And I think what we learned through that process was we had a lot of leaders that didn't like to tell people no, right? So we had to do some coaching on, let's talk about how to say no, or how to say right now, or hey, let's think about this further, because it's too expensive, right? I had one employee put in a card because they wanted a high-speed door put in by an overhead door, right? And so we triggered the conversation, and the supervisor was struggling, like, I don't know what to do, right? It's a lot of money to do that. How do we justify it? So we went and talked to the employee again, and we're like, well, help us understand more. And the person's like, oh, I'm just tired of hearing that person over here complain about it. So we're like, oh, all right, great. So we walk over, talk to that person, and that person's like, well, yeah, it's cold outside. The material handler has to go outside to get frames to bring them in. And when he goes out there, he leaves the door open, it gets cold. So we need something, right? High-speed door, goes up and down automatically. Like, all right, sounds good. So we go talk to the material handler, right, who's going outside. And that guy goes, hey, if you just give me a garage door opener, I'll open it and shut it on my way in and out. And we're like, oh, well, we can go buy a $10 garage door opener. I think we put a system in place because what we were seeing was, people thought, look, I don't know if those people that said they told somebody really did or not. I don't know if the person that was told really did or didn't do something. We've all been busy, and I'm sure I forget half the things people tell me. So the point of the process was document it, right? Create a system that puts it out there. We also learned that, hey, if the answer is not right now or no, how do we just tell people that, right? So they don't expect it. I can tell you another one we had where, same thing, employee, like I've been telling people for 5 years, nobody did anything. Hey, let's fill out this card and work through the process. Got the, hey, that doesn't do anything, and there's me, will humor me. Let's try it. I'll be honest, it took a year, right? So that card, we have an escalation process that if cards go unsolved, right, and we don't say no, they escalate up, right? So they were working the process, it hit my desk. right? I can tell you we've been on that darn card for a month, every month for a year, before we finally somebody had a good idea to figure out a solution, right? And then, by the way, it took another, I think, 6 months to pilot it, trial it, design it, and implement it. So this card was a year and a half old. But my point of my story is, most don't go that way, by the way. Most are solved in like 30 days. My point of that discussion is, hey, that problem wasn't solved not because nobody wanted to, because it was hard, right? And it took a really long time of a bunch of smart people talking about it to finally figure out a solution. And by sticking to the process, right, we finally got there, right? So it took a long time, but it happened.
That's right. We had very similar. I just hear it rings so true. This year we focused that activity this year because in our safety program, our #1 injury type. Our workforce is a little bit older in general. We have a union workforce and people who've been around for a lot of years. Ergonomic type of injuries, and so we really wanted to focus on ergonomics. So I will take suggestions for anything, but the idea was if you can fix it, go fix this. Let us know anything. And we've had one of the most simple fixes we had was somebody that has to reach up and touch a button on a monitor, and the button happened to be programmed to be at the top, so she had to do this. And she'd been doing that literally for years, and she said, could we just move the button down here? And then, it's a program, right? Done in like 20 minutes, right? Most of the problems are more like that, but we have the similar ones. But the thing that we've gotten out of it, and you started talking about this as an employee engagement tool, and it is very much employee engagement because a lot of times people are out there and thinking, you just don't care about them, right? You expect me to do this, whatever the this is. And when we can show that we're really trying, and not just show it, you are really trying, but some of those problems are really, really difficult to solve. But when I can tell you that the response from our employee base from those kind of things has been fantastic. They're part of it. Hey, we'll do one of those lean Kaizen events around it, and they can be part of the team. We spend a week trying to work on solutions, and we'll do that kind of thing. We had, speaking of that kind of Kaizen approach, when we kind of coming out of that COVID timeframe too, we were also we had a huge volume increase, and we had to hire a bunch of people, and it took a long time. And one of the downsides, I guess, to a company, so GE Healthcare, we're a huge company, and there is some bureaucracy in different parts of the organization that we have to deal with. And to hire people, we have our operations team, we have union relations, we have HR, we have a staffing team, a recruiting team, it's like all these different teams. And so, hey, I need 5 people. The signal goes through, 15 different things before it ever even gets a posted job, and then somebody posts for it, and then they've got all these hoops to jump through, all the different, drug screen or whatever the things are that they go through just to get somebody in. So we actually took that approach that we brought all the different groups together and did one of those Kaizen events to smooth out that process. And we, when we did the first process map, it was like 9 weeks before you could possibly, on a good one, get somebody in if everything worked well. And we took that down to about 3. We couldn't do better than 3 at that time. Maybe, we could get to a better, but we did, and it made a huge difference for being able to onboard people. But taking a look at those processes as a whole was really, really important. So for me, that was a good use of that kind of tool, getting our own processes together. But then the keeping people is a big deal, and I think that engagement stuff is big. We don't have much turnover at all, and that's been true. And I think, from our Ergo idea program, but the whole, when we do those kind of Kaizens, those lean workshops we always have operators involved in that. They're part of the change, so they're bought into it. Don't just feel like their voices are heard. Their voices are heard, and they're part of the solutions to that. So that's been good.
Bouncing back to something I heard Andy say a while back about like changeover, right? He's taking, manufacturing. We're always trying to minimize, changeovers, single minute exchange of guys, that kind of philosophy. That kind of applies to training as well, right? It's like now saying, all right, we're doing that for our manufacturing, machines and saying, all right, let's get that setup time reduced, etc. Let's do that same thing for employees for that start time. Tony's great story of taking it from 9 weeks down to 3 weeks. Even introducing different training methods. We all use YouTube to help educate ourselves on certain things. What about videos? I mean, somebody can absorb quicker through a video than actually reading something, right? So there's a lot of tools you can do, but that's an important factor about not only training in the startups, but also keeping them. I think we kind of tapped on a little bit of the next 2 points here, which is empowering and the culture, right? A specific question for me. I think we heard a little bit from Tony and Andy saying, bring them into the part of the mix, make them part of the change, or change management 101. But what do you do for those people that look at lean practices and methods and say, oh, you're just trying to eliminate my job, right? How do you get those people on your side to say, no, we want to help you, and here's why?
Yeah, I would tell you, I have probably 1,000 examples of this, because I've had that. I was in the global lean role, so shops all over the world, and it is the same kind of concern that people have. But what we're not really, we are trying to get productivity, and productivity is either getting the same with less or getting more with the same. And we're typically in the, hey, let's go get more with the same kind of approach. So I have 0 examples of actually eliminating an employee from lean operations over doing this for 20 years. We're always kind of more growth oriented, or you don't backfill a role that you didn't have to backfill, but we've never just had to let somebody go. But I have, one of the good examples, we were kind of chatting about this the other day, Rick. A plant that I ran about 15 years ago, I went into, and they had a kind of a poor lean implementation where they, just the communication was bad, and they did some of the stuff that they did in the shop just really wasn't great for the operator. It wasn't so operator focused. But I talked to this one employee. I went out and I was pretty new to the shop, and I just said, hey, what do you think about this lean stuff? She said, I don't really like it, because she gave me a couple reasons of stuff that they did that didn't really work very well. She goes, but I do like the kits. So this was that material delivery thing that I said earlier is pretty positive with operators. And I said, well, can I see one of the kits that they made? And she walked over to this. She has a work bench, and then underneath it there's a shelf. And she had to go down, and she bends down, kind of has to work it out. Picks it up and plops it on there. It's one of these great big, it's like it was a plastic, like the sweater containers or whatever that you might get at Kmart. They're big and long and whatever. And it was one of those, and inside of there they had some foam and parts cut out, so the parts were specifically in there and labeled. And once you got the lid open, yeah, this is pretty good. But I'm like, but it's not great that you really bend down and get that. She goes, yeah, that's not great. But so I said, well, hey, if we could make this better for you, I mean, you like the kit, if we could get this delivered maybe on a cart on wheels that you got here, maybe a little smaller, would you be part of that if we came out and did a workout, a Kaizen event out here? And she said, sure. Right? And she helped develop this new thing, and she was one of my big supporters of lean after that. And we got that. So for me, it's really been about driving that engagement from the employees, working with them to honestly make their job better. I think of the operators as kind of the doctor, the surgeon working on, and we get the doctor the tools that they need. And if we treat it that way, then we get that really good response from those folks. So I have dozens of those kind of examples, but that was an early one for me that really run.
Yeah, I'd say for us, I don't know if it's a lot of people saying I don't want to support it because I'm afraid of my job being eliminated, especially in a growing company. But I do think it's what Tony said. It's more about, as people, sometimes we don't like change, so it's more about how do you get them to be on board and embrace it. So I like what he said around, and I think we do the same thing. How do you get those people to be advocates of the process? Just because it can create that empowerment and take people's ideas and help them implement it for the better of everyone, right? Not just the company, but also the jobs they're doing in their life. So we've kind of done similar approaches with Kaizens where we try to bring those people in, and I think almost every single time we brought somebody in, they leave it with their ideas implemented, and they're a big advocate of the process then, right? So they go talk positively about it through the shop floor, and which hopefully then gets you more people participating, right?
I was just going to say the same thing. It kind of breeds, right? It blossoms into more ideas, additional people, etc. And then the culture you mentioned earlier, you're not losing people because they're involved in it, right? They realize that they're making a difference, not just making parts, they're actually improving the company. Last 4 things here. The first 2 kind of go hand in hand, which is like, tell me some key elements that you guys need in order to kind of drive that productivity. And then also, when I say elements, I'm also thinking metrics. I mean, you guys touched on a little bit with your daily management system. I think you said, Tony, and I'm not sure what you said, Andy, but you have certain metrics that you're using to kind of really keep your eye on that helps you drive productivity. Do you have any like specific ones that really are necessary in order to drive that?
Well, for me it is, I think of this kind of holistically, that daily management system, or the lean management system, whatever, but we look every day, safety, quality, delivery, and cost, and we have what are the key measures for us right now, and they do change over time. What is, in the quality case, if we're seeing some yield type issues in an area, we'll actually measure yield in that area specifically. Safety, we measure, things like injury rate. Did I have an injury? Yes or no? But also we have a whole process around it. Employees raise concerns. What's my closure rate? Did I get things closed on time? And I measure ourselves on that. So that's a measure. And when I don't do it, when we have a red, we'll mark it red that day. We always have a reason for why it was red. And in this case, we break down what area of the shop, so that we can go further on it. But we've got this living Pareto chart of where our problems are. And we do that for each safety, quality, delivery, cost to catch that data so that then we can go work on a problem that's a real problem. We have problems every single day, and it's the kind of the squirrel effect, right? You work on whatever that problem is, and at some level you have to respond to the problems you have every day. But you also have time, you'll pull a team together and go work on a more dedicated problem solving, and that helps make sure that you're working on the right things. Because if I can eliminate one of these problems that is a consistent problem for me, then we'll have a new kind of top Pareto item. So for me, that's it, that we measure each of those things. Delivery, what was my output for each of the things? Did I make the shift by shift output? And if I didn't, why not? Was it equipment? Was it material delivery? Was it people? We measure each of those things.
Yeah, I would say the data as well as the culture. How do you have those processes in place that drive improvement through your facility with engaging employees? But a data approach, right? So, like Tony said, you got the squirrels or the loud person that's frustrated by the one thing that happened that year that they just want to solve. But we're not solving things that happen every day, right? So I've watched teams come together to say, how do we address something, and you get the opinions, right? So I think that's where you need the data. How do you get those teams to stick the data versus the opinions? So that, and then keep working on that process, right? I'll tell you about a quality meeting happening one day where this team was tasked with improving first pass tests by like 50%. We wanted, so they had all this data, they tracked all these issues. They were doing a PDCA, so a plan, do, check, act process, where they were root causing. They had like the top 3 issues they identified by a Pareto, which was great. They identified solutions. So they were sitting in a meeting one day having a pretty passionate conversation. We'll say yelling at each other. But it was interesting, right? They're all upset because the metric hadn't improved. So I walk in, and because you could hear them down the hall, like, what's going on, and you could tell the passion, the frustration, because they're all wanting to get better, but we hadn't, right? So we took a step back and said, well, let's look at the actions, right? And what's interesting, if you're familiar with plan, do, check, act, it's, plan, do something, then check it, right? And then research it again, basically, right? So every single problem, they'd finished the planning phase, but they hadn't put actions in place. So the question then was, hey, you're frustrated the metric hadn't improved, but we haven't done anything yet. So you came up with great actions, but let's just recognize where we're at in the process, right? You didn't put actions in place yet, because they were in process, right? So you're upset the metric hasn't improved, but you haven't done anything by that point. So I think, I tell that story because how do you get the teams to understand the data, but understand where they're at in these processes? So we got to keep coaching the mentoring. Like that's just a good example of, appreciate the frustration from that team, but what was interesting was we focused on the action plan, we got the actions implemented, and within a week they saw the metric improve. It's kind of like, once again, let's recognize as a team where we're at in our improvement process.
Yeah.
I would say as well.
That data-driven is so important too. For me, that was one of the key things. I gave that furnace example a while ago. We're going to have to buy a whole new furnace. And if you would have asked the groups why they thought we were not able to make output, it was because of furnace downtime. That's just what you would have asked. And when we put people out there and really, to help solve the problems real time, but we also gathered the data on what those issues were and went and got after each of those issues. Boom, material delivery, timing of unloading and loading, and got all that together. With a data-driven approach, we had a very different answer, and it's important to capture that stuff.
Not trying to put words in either of your mouths, but if I'm like listening to your guys' stories and ideas and methods that you're using, I'm kind of summarizing a couple things that I'm hearing. Now, obviously, data is important, right? But then boil that down to, I heard, availability and utilization of that machine. You just mentioned the oven one more time. So that's maybe a takeaway, right? Is that's one key element that you really need to have. Another one I heard was rates earlier, or talk time, right? Having that information to say, all right, I have a talk time, I have a rate, and am I performing to that rate? And then looking at the data, kind of gathering, I split it into two categories. You have your historical ones that drive your Kaizen events, right? You say, all right, where can I improve because this is something that keeps occurring over and over again. And then you have your immediate things that have to be solved today. I've got a machine that's down, I have material that's it's either not there or it's non-conforming, right? I have a person problem, whatever it may be. You have those immediate feedbacks that you need right away. And those can, again, be over both categories. Can be over rate, can be over availability, or uptime the machine's down, stack lights go off, saying that it's down, etc. We have about 5 minutes left here. Just real quickly, advice. I mean, you guys have advice, and take whatever level you want, whether it's an owner or a CEO or a plant manager or an operator or supervisor.
Sure.
Yeah, I probably have advice at all levels. So I think as you start like at the top, right, I think as you drive these things, it is important to watch out for, as you drive certain metrics, make sure you're not sacrificing other ones, and then that culture you're creating. So I think, you may have heard as we talk metrics, right, we talk safety, quality, on-time delivery, cost, right? By the way, those metrics are in order of importance, right? So sometimes as I've seen as we're driving productivity, right, you start watching operators skip steps like quality or safety related, and I think that's unintentional. Nobody ever says go get hurt driving and improve productivity, but it's a watch out, right? As you're driving some certain goals for the day or other things, at that top, make sure you're not sacrificing, your culture is not changing where it's unintentionally sacrificing, especially safety or quality. So I think that's one up there, and there's probably others. I think what I'm really focused on right now at the supervisor level is, with that level, you're empowered. I see a lot of supervisors coming in and think they're just there to watch people that day, right? Everything we talked about, it's about providing tools and empowering them to run their areas like a business, right? So I think my advice to them would be, take that empowerment and go do, right? I had one supervisor send me a whole PowerPoint and presentation, everything I should do to make his line better. And by the way, it was all simple stuff, right? From taping floors to Kanban, and my answer back to him was, hey, this is great. Here's your team, why don't you go do it? So I think about stuff like that, right? That's my feedback for him, but then how do we do better making sure they know they're empowered? And they have a whole team of people. That supervisor's got 20 people on the line that you could work a few extra minutes or do something during downtime, right? And probably have those improvements and make your line better. But yet it was interesting, they think it's somebody else's job, right? So.
Right on. That whole culture piece is really important at the at that leadership level. You got to be careful about how you message what you want. Hey, we all do want productivity. That's one of our goals. In the end, we're trying to make our stuff and make it more cost effectively. But if that's your focus, you're risking the safety and quality pieces. So I agree completely. I would also, for me, get this daily management system, that kind of measuring yourself and holding yourself accountable, and then seeing where you're not meeting those goals is hugely important because it drives you in the right direction.
I'll add on to that. You guys said a lot, which was great. My advice would be say, obviously you've heard a lot of good things today, is to start small. Everybody tries to boil the ocean, right? All at one time. No, take one pail at a time, boil it down to one critical area, one critical event, and actually start there, gain the momentum, right? Build that culture that these guys were talking about already, and say, all right, and it's going to get speed, and it's going to take off from there. So start small, use the measurements that you have. If you don't have measurements, start gathering some data for those measurements. A couple minutes left, and we're going to be out of here by 2 o'clock. Any questions from anybody?
Tony, I've got a quick one for you. I
Sure.
liked how you define productivity as either doing more with less or doing more with the same, right?
Yeah.
Or maybe I got that a little backwards, but when I think about planning right now and hitting your plan, both of you guys talked about this,
Yeah.
that's really do the same with less. So can you talk a little bit about how in parallel you are working with your organization, whether it's on yield or it's on quality, right? To move the bar up 3 percentage points a year or whatever,
Yeah.
and continue along that line, doing more with the same.
Yeah, so for me, we have that very, very built into the organization I'm in today, and I would say that's not true in every operation I've ever been in or seen. So it's almost not fair, because I have a whole set of engineers that's their remit. That's what they're here for every day, is to see those quality problems and improve them. And that, any quality improvement is a huge benefit, because one yield point is less rework I have to do, it's less cost, less double cost, less triple cost. So it is a great area to focus, it kind of depends on your operation. For ours, it just happens to be kind of the elephant in the room problem, so it drives itself. Depending on where you are, though, it is a great one for productivity, because scrap is wasted work, yield is wasted work.
Yeah, you guys talked a lot about getting a lot more data, probably out of a lot of systems and stuff, and empowerment. How do you see the sharing of that information? What do you share with who? Is that what you guys talk about a lot?
We do, actually, and we have different parts of my own shop. We have some areas that are very, the machines give a lot of output data, and we have dashboards up for operators to see real time, where am I, red or green versus where I'm supposed to be right now for today. That's great. So at the operator level, and we use that same information all the way up, kind of am I on? I just don't look at it. So I look at it daily, right? So in our kind of that daily DMS, daily management system. But the operators can look at it minute by minute, hour by hour. I have other areas of the shop where I'm still using whiteboards. Hey, I got 1, I got 2, I got 3, and so that it's important that the operators have that real-time feedback if on plan or not, and I'm able to see that all the way up the organization, kind of at that different pace. So whether it's per takt time, per hour, per shift. You said you guys have hour-by-hour charts. We have that same thing. You need to be able to see that. But then you got to bubble it up to, did I meet the shift and did I meet the day? Kind of respond to that.
We're right at 2 o'clock. I hate to cut it off here. If you guys do have additional questions, we've got a booth out there. I'll be there at 20 minutes. I know Andy's got to take a meeting right now. But again, thank you for your time.